Yo, 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 what's good? What's good? It's Jost, the babe. Yeah, I didn't know, man. Controversial conversation is back in your airways. Took a quick little hiatus. I had some things I needed to do. And as you can see, it did not work out perfectly for me, as I have become another number in the justice system. Our criminal justice system that has once again failed and disproportionately targeted people that look like me, people that have melanated skin tone. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to imagine what a world could be like if brothers and sisters were not constantly being thrown in cages. And today, that is what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about prison abolition. And this is a good one, y'all. This is a real good one. So let's have some fun talking about something that isn't fun. This is a path to justice. So let's talk about prisons, right? For decades, they've been sold to us as the ultimate solution to crime, a place where bad people go to get what they deserve. But here's the truth: prisons don't solve crime, they don't address harm. What they do is perpetuate cycles of violence, trauma, and oppression. Today, we're breaking down the case for prison abolition, we're challenging the myths, and we're exploring what a world without cages could look like. So let's talk about the foundations of prison abolition. Because this isn't some new novel idea, right? It has deep roots in movements against slavery and systemic oppression. So Angela Davis, in her groundbreaking work, Are Prisons Obsolete?, reminds us that the prison system as we know it grew directly out of the legacy of slavery. And the 13th Amendment abolished slavery except as a punishment for crime, creating a loophole that allowed forced labor to continue under the guise of incarceration. See, the prison system was never about justice. It was about control, particularly over Black and marginalized communities. So here's the core idea: abolition doesn't mean we let harm go unchecked. It means reimagining justice in a way that prioritizes accountability, healing, and prevention over punishment. It's about dismantling systems of oppression and building a society where prisons aren't necessary because we address the root causes of harm. So here's the key arguments for abolition: the systemic racism and social control. See, prisons disproportionately target marginalized communities, especially Black and Brown people. And this isn't a coincidence. It's literally by design. Like, the prison industrial complex profits off mass incarceration, using it as a tool of social control to suppress marginalized groups. So, as Angela Davis calls it, this is the racialization of punishment, where entire communities are criminalized and locked away to maintain social hierarchies. And let's talk about the effectiveness or lack thereof. Because let's be real, prisons don't work. They don't rehabilitate people and they don't reduce crime. In fact, they often make things worse, perpetuating cycles of harm and recidivism. So studies consistently show that addressing root causes like poverty, trauma, and lack of education is far more effective than locking people up. And then there's also the ethical and moral grounds. So abolitionists argue that the very concept of locking human beings in cages is dehumanizing. Prisons isolate, punish, and destroy lives rather than addressing harm or fostering accountability. And as Angela Davis says, prisons do not disappear problems, they disappear human beings. So let's talk about alternatives to prison. There's this concept called restorative justice. And restorative justice focuses on healing and accountability instead of punishment. It brings together the person who caused harm, the person harmed, and the community to address root causes and find a path forward. See, this isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about creating meaningful accountability and repairing relationships. And let's talk about transformative justice. So transformative justice goes a step further and it asks what conditions allowed harm to occur in the first place. How do we change those conditions? It's about addressing systemic issues like poverty, housing insecurity, and a lack of mental health care that often lead to crime in the first place. And then let's talk about decarceration. While abolition is the long-term goal, decarceration is about taking immediate steps to reduce reliance on incarceration So this includes eliminating cash bail, reforming sentencing laws, and investing in alternatives like mental health services and addiction treatment. So I know you're going to hit me with it. Here come the critiques and the challenges, right? What about the public safety concerns? Well, that's the most common question. What about violent crimes? So abolitionists, they don't ignore this. They recognize that addressing violence requires a more nuanced approach. Transformative justice models, like those used by organizations such as Common Justice, show that even in cases of violence, accountability and healing are possible without resorting to incarceration. The other issue, scalability. Well, critics argue that abolition is unrealistic on a large scale. But abolitionists counter that current system by saying it just isn't working either. So by redirecting the billions, and I mean billions, that are spent on prisons to community-based resources, we can create a society that addresses harm more effectively and humanely. So let's talk about the role of the prison industrial complex, because we can't forget how we ended up here in the first place, right here. So let's not forget the economic side of this. Prisons are big business. Private prisons, prison labor, and the industries that profit from incarceration have a vested interest in keeping people locked up. And this is why Angela Davis and other abolitionists call for dismantling the entire prison industrial complex, which turns human suffering into profit. So let's talk about some practical applications and case studies, because I know y'all always want something that can be shot and shown as a real world application. And I gotcha. Restorative justice programs. So in Oakland, California, restorative justice programs in schools have drastically reduced suspensions and expulsions, helping to dismantle the school to prison pipeline, which is something we will talk about further, not this episode, but we will be examining the school to prison pipeline and how it disproportionately affects Black and Brown students. And there's also the programs that focus on accountability and healing rather than punishment. But what these do is they show how transformative practices can work even in tough situations. There's also something called the Cahoots program. So in Eugene, Oregon, the Cahoots program diverts mental health and homelessness related 911 calls to train crisis workers instead of the police. This keeps vulnerable people out of jail and connects them with the resources they need, proving that non-punitive approaches can save lives. And then also the closure of Rikers Island. Like New York City's efforts to close Rikers Island highlight the potential for decarceration. While the process has been slow and imperfect, it's a step toward reducing reliance on massive dehumanizing jail complexes. And if you need any more of a reason to be in complete agreement with the closure of Rikers Island, just look into Khalif Browder's story, and it is one of the most heartbreaking things you will ever hear. So how do we reimagine justice? And how do we have a vision for the future? So abolition is about imagination. It's about daring to believe that a world without prison is possible. Angela Davis reminds us that every moment for justice, from abolitionism to civil rights, was once dismissed as impossible. But progress has always required bold visionaries willing to challenge the status quo. So let me give y'all some further reading and some resources. I mentioned it earlier, but Angela Davis's Are Prisons Obsolete? Then there's Marimay Kaba, We Do This Till We Free Us. And then don't forget Ava DuVernay's 13th, which was a Netflix documentary about how the 13th Amendment did not get rid of slavery, but gave it a new name. Beautifully striking, powerful imagery and visuals. And then there's also Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Golden Gulag, Prisons, Surplus, Crisis, and Opposition in Globalizing California. So look, in conclusion, prison abolition isn't just about tearing something down. It's about building something better. It's about imagining a society where justice means healing, not punishment, where accountability means growth, not isolation, and where everyone has the resources they need to thrive. And as Angela Davis says, we have to talk about liberating minds as well as liberating society. So the question is, are we ready to work? And if you are, I need you to hit that comments button and tell me you ready to get active. Then I need you to hit that subscribe button so you know when we getting active. And I need you to hit that notification bell so you get notified when we getting active, because that's what we're going to continue to do here at Controversial Conversation. And as always, it hasn't really been always, I guess I'm trying to figure this part out, but this is what I need y'all to do for me. I need y'all to be good, but I need y'all to be great. One love. It's Juxta Babe.